Hey guys, Marcinkin here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle video, and so today we are going to talk about the best hidden potential builds, at least in my opinion, for the Part 1 anniversary units. Now, I probably should have made this video and put it up before today, but I kind of completely forgot when I made a list of all the videos I wanted to make for the anniversary. For whatever reason, I just totally missed this one because, of course, by the time this video goes up and you guys see it, the units are already out, like the farmable free-to-play units, the login bonus Gogeta. I was reminded because when we streamed this morning for the official start of the anniversary, a couple of people in the chat asked about builds for Gogeta or Beerus, so I thought I'd get this video out as quick as possible for today, but we are going to cover Broly and Gogeta in the video as well, so at least the video is going up before they release, and if you do manage to pull dupes for them, then obviously we will be going over the options. Now, of course, it is just my opinion at the end of the day. Everybody has their own preferred playstyle, you know, truth with the everything full dodge, although sometimes that is the best way to do certain units, and funnily enough, some of these units that we're going to talk about here today are probably best with a lot of dodge, but we're going to go through them all here. So if you find the video helpful at all, do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new around these parts. We're on the road to 30k subscribers. We'd love to hit that goal by the end of the anniversary. So yeah, we'll start off with the login bonus Gogeta. So just from logging in today, you will have your copies of this guy. You get 5 copies immediately on login. So obviously that will enable you to open his 4 paths straight away. And then as you complete some of the other missions, you can then of course get the copies to level up his super attack level. So the key thing to note with this guy is his super attack effect is greatly raised attack and defense for 1 turn. So any additional super is going to give him the extra greatly raise again. He does supreme damage, and then he has a chance to dodge plus 19% within the same turn. So if he gets an additional super, he gets an additional 19% chance to dodge. Now that is very important because when trying to decide whether to give him more additional or dodge, that was what I was looking at. Because if we look at his passive, he's a nuking style unit, gets extra stats per key sphere obtained. If you get 5 orbs, he gets effective against all types, which means whilst you can still crit while being effective against all types and it does a bit of extra damage, it means he doesn't necessarily need crit. And then of course if you get 9 orbs, which is a bit more difficult, but if you get 9 orbs, he gets guaranteed crits. And then of course he unfortunately doesn't have his own orb changing, which means the 9 orbs can be a little bit inconsistent. But I would say that this is a reason I didn't give mine any crit whatsoever. Because even if you're not getting the 9 orbs to get the crit, he has effective against all types. So chances are you're not going to be using this guy, since he's a free-to-play like card anyway. You're not going to be using him against like the toughest STR bosses. But effective against all types is still going to be useful for type neutral. So I don't think he needs any crit in the hidden potential. And then it just comes down to the choice over additional or dodge. And this is what I was saying, right? With his additional super giving him an extra 19% chance to dodge, the nodes that were like dodge or crit, you know, easy choice, pick crit, pick dodge. Same for crit or additional, easy choice, pick additional. But the ones where you can pick additional or dodge, that's where you have to think about this like potential for this additional super, because giving him 1 extra node of dodge means he has an extra 3% chance to dodge. But if you give him an extra node for 1% chance to dodge, if you give him a additional node, then that gives him an extra chance to do an additional super, which would give him an extra 19% defense. So if that 1 node were to be the deciding factor for the turn, it's better to have an additional, I don't know why I said 1 dodge before, because each node is 3, but it's better to have the additional, I would say, 19% defense, obviously if you could pick the outcome of the hidden potential slot, than it is to have 3% dodge. The problem is, of course, that with the extra additional slot, if you pick that, you might not get an additional, and if you do, you might get an additional normal. So honestly, I feel like that one is down to personal preference, but the one thing I would say categorically is I don't think personally he needs crit in the hidden potential at all. So I gave mine, basically I think I only gave him dodge in the nodes that were dodge or crit. I think there's one The one at the top, is that dodge or... No, there's one dodge or additional where I did give him dodge. So mine has 17 additional, 9 dodge. Because once he gets his super attack off for the turn anyway, he already has a 19% chance. So if he gets that additional super, it becomes a 38%, and then he has the backup 9%. So I think that is the best way to go for him. But let me know what you guys think and how you built yours in the comments. Then we have the LR Beerus. So obviously with LR Beerus, before he awakens on the 5th turn, he can't attack. So he has high defense, he has damage reduction, he's basically just there to tank some hits, he's an orb changer, and then on turn 5, he wakes up, and then you have raise attack for 1 turn on his 12 key as well as a seal, and then greatly raise attack and defense for 1 turn, mega colossal, and greatly lowers attack on the 18 key. Now the thing with this is it means that if you are getting an additional super, he's only raising attack for the turn, which is good because he's, you know, going to do more damage, but it doesn't give him any extra help defensively. And then he has his defense, he has damage reduction, you get key and attack with each attack received, additional attack and defense 100% with 3 or more orbs, damage reduction 30% with 5 or more orbs, and then high chance to crit starting from the turn in which he receives the 7th attack. So again, for this guy, considering what you're going to be using him for, which is like a defensive unit with a bit of orb changing, I went with no crit on this guy as well, because whilst he does have to take 7 hits to get the 50% chance to crit, once he gets that, it means critting the hidden potential obviously has a lot less value. And then because his 12 key super does not have any sort of defense raising ability, I gave him more dodge than additional. So basically any node that could be dodge, I gave him dodge, so dodge 15, and then 11 additional. Now I should mention, if you haven't noticed already, these are without orbs, right? Skill orbs, because for me personally, I mean, I might skill orb these guys for when we do the showcases, but Beerus is good. Gogeta, I don't think necessarily would be used all that much, so I don't know if you'd want to put like premium skill orbs in him. But obviously, you know, when we talk about these builds and we talk about the primary ability, so like for Beerus, I would say it's dodge. For Gogeta, I would say it's either additional or dodge, up to you. So when it comes to skill orbs, just use the ones that maximize that particular ability. So if you have ones that give extra dodge and additional, obviously that's going to be good for both of these guys. But like I say, I wouldn't necessarily use premium skill orbs on Gogeta. Beerus is pretty good, so if you want to throw some like mid to high tier orbs on him, maybe not your best ones, but then he can be pretty good. So for Beerus, I would say full dodge. He is largely going to be there to be a defensive character. He works well on super bosses as like a floating unit as well. So he's not necessarily a character that is always going to get fully built up and be getting all these crits and extra attacks and stuff. So dodge, I think, is the primary option for him. Then we go on to the free-to-play Frieza. Now, obviously, bear in mind as well, we are talking about all these characters with their Extreme Z awakened abilities, so they won't be easy aid until later in the anniversary, but obviously you can farm up the characters now. There's missions to rainbow them, so you want to make sure you've got the right hidden potential set now. They are free to play, apart from the Gogeta, of course. Like Beerus and Frieza, you can farm extra copies if you want to change their hidden potential. But Gogeta, you have to be careful because obviously there's only a limited amount of them available from the missions and stuff, right? So free to play Frieza, he's a Super Boss's character who is a Super Boss's support unit. He does greatly raise attack and defense for 1 turn on Super. He does have a additional attack that has a high chance to become a super when you're at 50% or more HP, and then he launches an additional super when facing 2 or more enemies, which isn't super useful, but he does get an additional 50% attack and defense and a scouter ability when there's a pure Saiyan or movie heroes enemy, which is very useful considering that most of the anniversary content is against pure Saiyans or movie heroes characters. So he's a very good floating support. Obviously, I say very good, like for a free-to-play unit, right? You're not going to be taking him into the hardest events in the game and he's just going to be face-tanking everything. But he's a solid unit. Now, he's an int unit, so of course he gets the free level 5 dodge. But surprise, surprise, kind of funny with these free-to-play characters that it goes this way. But full dodge is probably the best build for him as well, and then all the rest into additional, because he's not on the team to do damage. So him critting is really not important. Like, that's not why you've put him on the team, right? He's there to support super bosses for extra key and defense, and then not die. And obviously have the scour if you're in the right event against the right enemy. So full dodge is the way to go for this guy. and then all the rest into additional, because obviously if he does get an additional super, then he's greatly raising his defense for the turn. So full dodge and then additional for this guy. I mean, it's pretty much my go-to build for floating support units, because as I say, they're not on the team to do damage. They're on the team to support the team and not die. So I would say full dodge is the way to go for this guy as well. So there's the free-to-play units. Then we have the summonable units that, of course, will be coming out, well, tomorrow night if you're in the US, Tuesday morning if you're in the UK or Europe like me. Or I guess some time zones in the US is actually like 1 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, but most people would still consider that Monday night, right? Because they haven't gone to bed yet. That's how I always used to think of it in my mind, even when I was on night shifts. Like if I got home at like 7 o'clock in the morning, I would still be saying tomorrow for later in the day because I hadn't gone to bed yet. So let me know if you do that too. Random aside, but there you go. So Broly, we're going to talk about Broly's hidden potential. So Broly infinitely stacks attack on his 12 key super and then raises defense for 1 turn. He greatly raises attack, which is an infinite stack, and greatly raises defense for 4 turns on his 18 key super. So additionals obviously are good for him. More stacks, more defense for the turn. Obviously very, very good. He gets an additional super for 4 turns built into his passive already. So you're already getting an extra attack, which is then a higher chance to proc the hidden potential. He's an AGL unit, so he starts with level 5 additional anyway. He gets extra attack when performing a super. Additional defense if it's an ultra super. Additional 2 key and launch an additional super attack as the first or second attacker in the turn. And then an additional key 6, an additional super, and a high chance of launching another additional super as the third attacker in the turn. So notice that in his pre-transform state, he doesn't have any crit chance in his kit whatsoever. Now, when he transforms into full power Broly, he's raising attack and defense for 1 turn, greatly raising attack and defense for 1 turn on the 12 key. He gets additional key per orb obtained, has damage reduction before attacking while his domain is active. Then he gets extra attack when attacking and defense when receiving an attack. Launches an additional super when attacking, just guaranteed. Chance to crit 26% when performing a super attack. Launches another additional super and chance of performing a crit plus 26 when performing an ultra super. So basically, once you've done his 18 key super, he gets a 52% chance to crit and a guaranteed additional super. And then he launches another additional super when key is 24. So this is where the decision comes for this guy, because if you don't give him any crit in his hidden potential, once he transforms, he's probably going to be regularly critting fairly often anyway. But it means in his base form, he will have no chance to crit like whatsoever. Now, additional, because he has so many additionals built into his kit already, you definitely don't need to go full additional with his hidden potential, right? Because if you're not already aware, every attack that a character does during their turn, if it's part of their passive or any special abilities they have, increases the chance that they'll do an additional because it rolls for it again, essentially. So if your character has, let's say, 20 additional, that means they have a 40% chance to do an additional super. If the character, let's say Broly here, right, is doing his super, then he gets an additional super as the first attacker in the turn, so he's done 2 supers already. That means it checks that 40% chance for him to do an additional twice. So especially once you get to like this guy, where if you're getting enough key, he's doing like 3 or 4 supers anyway, you don't need to have a really high additional chance for him to be able to get that additional super from the hidden potential system. So I would say that you do want to give him some additional, because he only starts off with 5. So you want to be going for, I would say, at least 11 or 14 from his base, like, star abilities. We're not factoring in hidden skill orbs. And then crit, it's entirely up to you, basically, whether you want him to crit in his base form. Because once he transforms, that crit that you've given him is obviously going to make it a little bit more likely that he is getting crits, but it's not going to be as useful because he has over 50% crit chance anyway once he's transformed. So surprise, surprise, a good secondary ability for him is actually dodge, because even though he has damage reduction, he has good defense after supering, he is not going to be tanking like the hardest hitting super attacks in the game, especially not in slot 1. Certain rotations he can with like the right support and everything, but especially with the build up from like a previous turn of transforming, because he raises for 4 turns on his 18 key. So a bit of dodge is good for him. Crit I don't think is necessarily that useful unless you really want to crit before he transforms. So he's one of these interesting characters where I don't know if I would say there's like a wrong, but I guess like full crit I would say is probably like the wrong build for him. But you can kind of spread the abilities out across the 3, without having a huge amount of worry that you've done something terribly wrong. Now, for me personally, I think I would go for mostly additional with dodge, and then I think I would give him maybe, like, if I've got a skill orb that gives him extra additional but gives him a little bit of crit, then maybe I would put that on there just so we do at least have some chance to crit in his base form. But I probably wouldn't give him any actual nodes in his hidden potential as crit. So I would say additional and dodge, fairly decent split. Similarly to the Beerus, I might basically, like with the 2 dupes, I would go 15 dodge, 11 additional, and then give him a skill orb for like additional and crit potentially. So let me know what you guys think. What's your ideal build for Broly? Someone out there will build him full crit, I'm sure. Looking at you, Mega Nice, but who knows? Then we have the other Frieza. So funnily enough, 2 Int Friezas who are both floating support units, essentially. So can you guess what the best build for this guy is going to be? The more orbs he picks up, you can get more damage reduction. You really want him to have the full damage reduction. He gets an extra 20% if you have a Super Boss's ally on the turn as well. So funnily enough, full dodge and then all the rest into additional, because he's greatly raising attack and defense for 1 turn. And what did we say about the floating support units? That's right, he's not on the team to do damage. He's on the team to support the team and not die. So full dodge and then the rest into additional for this guy. Obviously, like, he can hit attack stats that are okay. So as we mentioned with Broly, if you have skill orbs that you're giving this guy to give him a bit of extra additional or dodge that do have a bit of crit, then obviously critting is always good. But full dodge and then additional is the way to go for Golden Frieza. So a nice, quick, easy one there. And then we have our boy Gogeta. So Super Saiyan Gogeta greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn on his 12-key super, infinitely stacks defense, and then greatly raises attack for 1 turn on his 18-key super. Now, he is attacks effective against all types. So as we've already mentioned, crit is not necessarily something that he needs to have. It will help you do extra damage, but it's not something you need to have, right? So he has guard for 3 turns, he gets extra key per orbs obtained, changes orbs to rainbow, gets a guaranteed additional attack that has a great chance to become a super, so 70%, and then he gets a guaranteed additional super if you get a rainbow orb. So the thing is with this guy, if you picked up a rainbow orb, he's going to be attacking, even if this middle one is only a normal, he's going to be attacking 3 times in the turn anyway. So that, of course, as we've already said, increases the likelihood that you're going to proc his hidden potential additional. So you don't necessarily need to go full additional with this guy. Now, he can transform on turn 4, transform into Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. You recover HP at the start of the turn for 4 turns when he first appears, which is really good. I actually completely forgot that he does that. Super good ability. His 18-key massively raises attack for 4 turns, and then the 12-key greatly raises attack and defense for 1 turn. So interestingly enough, if he doesn't get an additional super, he doesn't get a defense raise. But he has the same ability where a rainbow orb gives him a guaranteed additional super, so very unlikely you're not going to get at least one of those. He still attacks effective against all types. He gets extra attack and defense on super, extra key per orb, the guaranteed additional super when attacking, it's now not a 70% chance, and the guaranteed one with a rainbow orb. So if you pick up a rainbow orb, he's super attacking 3 times, always. Then he has a great chance to dodge, 70% chance to dodge, and then chance to crit 20% with each attack evaded, which, bear in mind, there's no cap on this. So once he's dodged 5 times, he has guaranteed crit. And then he has a great chance to nullify Ki Blast super attacks and counter with tremendous power. So this guy, his hidden potential, I honestly think is very up in the air in terms of best build, because he basically does everything in his passive. So he's got a 70% chance to dodge, which is already very high. A 70% dodge chance character is not usually a character I would say, oh yeah, you know, you've got to go full dodge for this guy. He builds up crit. As soon as he's dodged 5 times, he has a 100% chance to crit. And then he's already effective against all types anyway. And then, of course, he's doing 3 supers per turn. So additional doesn't necessarily need to be super high for him to then get the additional from the hidden potential system. So what I would say to bear in mind as well is his active skill, which can be used on the next turn after he transforms from into blue, is the thing where he target abilities all the attacks onto him and guaranteed dodges them. So if there's 5 attacks in that turn, then you're getting your full 100% crit, because he's going to dodge all of those attacks, and then he's dodged 5 times. So I do honestly think, especially because he has attacks effective against all types beforehand, I think crit is completely pointless for this guy. So funnily enough, it's interesting that like all these Part 1 anniversary units, they pretty much all have the same ideal build, which is a mix of dodge or additional, and then just depending on your preference, go with the one you want the most, right? Because he doesn't get any bonus from being attacked, and because he attacks so many times in one turn, he's got a decent chance to get the additional off anyway. So I would probably say you just give him dodge and then additional. Even though I did say, right, a 70% dodge chance character is not necessarily one that you would need to give full dodge, but he just doesn't need any of the other abilities. And a higher chance to dodge just makes it more likely that in the Super Saiyan form, and then on the turn, the first turn of blue before you get to use the active skill, it just makes it even more likely that you're not actually ever going to get touched, right, if you give him full dodge. So again, without skill orbs, I would say go 15 dodge, 11 additional if you get the 2 dupes. And then with skill orbs, you can obviously give him either extra additional or dodge, up to you. Again, I probably wouldn't bother with crit, because even though he has no crit chance in his base form, he's already effective against all types. So it's not like if you're going up against an STR enemy, oh no, he didn't crit, now he didn't do any damage, because he's effective against all types. So funnily enough, almost all the characters benefit from basically just being full dodge and then additional. The only difference is this guy, just because getting an additional super has more value than having a couple of extra points in dodge, but you remember you might just get an additional normal. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Those are my opinions on the best hidden potential builds for the part 1 units. Let me know what you guys went with your free-to-play characters and what you're planning to go with if you pull dupes of the Broly or Gogeta. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.